Okay, basically what we're going to do is we're going to remove the two bolts in the back of the caliper right here. We're going to take out this one. We're going to take out this one here, the 14 millimeters, and we're going to remove the caliper from the car. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these two bolts underneath here. I believe they're 15/16. They look like they're pretty big. We're going to remove these two, and we're going to take that mounting bracket off of the car. But before we do anything, I want to show you what I always do. It saves a little bit of time. We're going to check the slide pins to make sure everything is functioning as it's supposed to. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with the screwdriver. You put it inside here, and you'll see it comes out the side over in there, right? And then what you do is you just slowly pry on the caliper, and it recesses the piston all the way back in. Now by doing that, you can check to make sure that these slide pins here are functioning in the way it's supposed to be, because now that the pistons are pushed back in, these should slide fairly easily, and they do. So we know the slide pins are not frozen, and we're going to just lubricate them when we put it back together. So let me grab a couple of tools, and we're going to get started. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take out those two 14 millimeter bolts in the back here. And you can just loosen them. And once you loosen them, you can pretty much take them out by hand. Take them out, and what we're going to do is we're going to remove the caliper from the car totally, and just relocate it out of the way so we can take that mounting bracket off. Right, take that out. It's a good idea to never let the caliper hang by itself by the hose, because you could damage the hose. So we just take a hanger or a piece of wire, whatever you have, and just relocate it up and out of the way like that. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take out those two bolts in the back that we talked about. They are 15/16. You can use a large ratchet, or I'm using a breaker bar because they're pretty tight to get them off. But you can use any kind of ratchet you have. And once you break them loose, you can pretty much turn them out by hand. By securing the caliper up and out of the way, it's not going to interfere with anything that you're doing here. Just take that out of the way. And the rotor just comes right off. Now, one thing I just want to show you real quick in here, the face of the rotor right here, I'm sorry, the face of the hub bearing gets a little bit rusty. So it's a good idea to take a piece of sandpaper or a disc or whatever you have and clean this off so that you don't have any kind of a pulsating brake pedal when you put it back together. So let me just grab an air line. We're going to do that now. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing. All right. Okay, now that we got the rotor machined and we cleaned up this hub right here, we're going to put the rotor back on. I always put a nut on here to hold the rotor in position while you put the mounting bracket and you put everything else back on. Then before you put the caliper mounting bracket back on, I pull these pins out right here, lubricate the pins so that they slide nice and easy. Same thing on this one here. Pull the pin out, just lubricate it, put it back in, makes everything slide nice and easily. Next thing you're going to do is wherever the brake pad is going to touch, you're going to put some grease to make it slide nice and easy so that it doesn't bind up at all. Alright, put a good amount of grease on so that everything slides freely. Alright, once you have it all lubricated, then we can put the mounting bracket back onto the car and put the bolts in through the back, those 15/16 bolts that you previously took out. Before you tighten them, make sure you have both bolts screwed down as far as you can go, and then you can tighten them up. And those are fairly tight in the back there. Right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our brake pads on. These brake pads can only go on one way. You see this little clip right here? That little clip goes inside here. So what happens when the brake is applied to the rotor and you take your foot off the brake pedal, this clip pulls the brake pad away from the rotor so it doesn't have a constant drag on it. Back with it first, and you're going to put that clip in just like I showed you in the front there. You have the same clip in the back. Right, you put it in like this, and you catch that clip inside. Make sure your clip is underneath this clip. And you see how it lets it pull out? Just slide while you're holding it with your hands, put your caliper over the top of it so that your brake pads don't slide out of these little clips right here. Right, and you screw both bolts in that hold the caliper to the mounting bracket. And then you can tighten everything up tight. Okay, I just want to show you real quick what you just have to check for to make sure it's done correctly. And that would be, you want to make sure that your make sure that these clips are on the top of the pad as they are right here, because now when you step on it, it applies, and when you take your foot off, it pulls the pad back out, so it doesn't have a constant drag on it. We have both of our bolts up top here. The 14 millimeters are both tight. The 15/16s here are both tight. The inner brake pad here, the clip is set as it's supposed to be, and that's it. You're all set. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go around to the other side, and we're going to do the brakes on the other side, and we're going to wrap this job up and get it out the door. What we're going to do is we're going to be removing the brake caliper from right here. We're going to take out this bolt and this bolt. We're going to remove the mounting bracket back here, this bolt, and there's another bolt underneath here, this bolt right here. We're going to take those two bolts out and remove the bracket. This one's a little bit different because when you unscrew this bolt right here, it's going to hit right into this rod here, and you won't be able to remove it all the way. So we're just going to take this out, flip it down, and we're going to take out the two 19 millimeter bolts to hold the mounting bracket to the car itself. So let's grab some tools and we're going to get started. We are going to be changing these rotors, and the reason we're going to do it is they're pretty much rusted on the inside. They're making a lot of noise, so we're going to be replacing the rotors at the same time. So let's get some tools and let's get started on this job. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get in here with the screwdriver. You put a screwdriver back behind the brake pad and the caliper, and you pry the piston back into the bore until it's recessed all the way. And the reason you're going to do that is you want to make sure your slide pins are sliding just the way they're supposed to. And as you can see, the caliper slides back and forth nice and freely. So we know that the slide pins are working just the way they're supposed to. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to loosen up those 14 millimeter bolts that hold the caliper to the car. You can break it loose. And we're just going to take the top one out because the bottom one, it won't come out all the way because it's going to hit into there. But we're just going to loosen it so that we can move it a little bit. And the bottom one you'll need to get in here with the wrench just to loosen it up. And we'll fold it back like this. And then what we need to do is we need to take out the 19 millimeter bolts that hold the mounting bracket to the car itself. And as you're going to find out, the lower bolt you won't be able to get on here with a regular ratchet because that rod is in the way. So you're going to need a 19 millimeter wrench to get onto that bolt, just so we can get that mounting bracket from the out of here. A lot of times they're pretty tight. You can usually break them loose. If you can't, I usually just double up a wrench on it, and it gives you a little bit more leverage. By adding the wrench to it, you can get a little more leverage out of it, and you don't kill yourself trying to get it out. And once you've got them loose, you can take them out by hand. Most of the time. This one here is a little bit rusty, so it's a little tight. We're going to reuse that bolt, so just put it on the side for now. Same thing here, just take the top one out. It's a little bit tight too, so we are going to use the ratchet on this one. Right, take the bolts out, and we're going to remove the caliper with the mounting bracket too. Don't leave it hanging, leave it up on something so that it's not dangling. If you have a piece of wire, you can wire it up someplace. In this case, we're just going to leave it laying right up there and we'll be fine. Now we're just going to get this rotor off, so let me grab a hammer and we're going to give that a couple of taps. Usually if you hit it in the face right here, you can get it to pop off. If that doesn't work and it's pretty rusty on there, because sometimes they are pretty rusty, I usually get behind it with the pry bar. Put the pry bar right behind the bracket that the the mounting bolt fit into, the 19 millimeter. You put it behind this, you put a little bit of pressure on it, and you hit it a couple of times on the face, and you get it to pop right off. In this case, we didn't have to. It did come right off. So, now let me grab the new rotors, and we're going to put the new rotors on, we'll put the new pads on, and we're going to go from there. I just want to show you another thing that we're going to be doing too. Let me get set up, and we'll come right back. Show you that what we're going to do here is we're going to be replacing the hardware on the back caliper here. So we're going to take the brake pads out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this clip right here and just pry this out. We're going to change the hardware because they're pretty rusty. If these are very rusty in here, you can use sandpaper or a file or whatever you can to get that rust out. In this case, it's not a significant amount of rust, so we're just going to file it a little bit so that's nice and clean. Same thing on this side here, a little bit of rust here. We're just going to file it down just so we have all that rust out of there. And we're going to put our mounting hardware back in. There's only one way it can go. It just pushes right back in just like this here. And the clips fit right up against there. Same thing on the top of here. You just put it up in here. And push it in. And it's in. Alright? Next thing we're going to do is you're going to take the brake pad and we're going to make sure we use the same sensor in the same location. See, this one is actually a mirror image, so we're not going to use this one. This is the one that we need. And we know it's an inner brake pad because there is the circle. That's from the piston touching from the caliper. Right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put grease, brake grease, on every place that the brake pad is going to touch. You put a good amount on there. Same thing here. Grease it up really good. That way everything slides nice and freely as it's supposed to. And then we're going to put the one that had the sensor on the inside, we're going to put that in there. Like this. Same thing on the other side. We're going to put the outer brake pad in, and they freely move in and out. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of lubricant where the pins are going to go, the slide pins, so that they slide in and out just the way they're supposed to. You could put the grease in here, or you could put the grease on the bolt here also. Alright? Now we're going to put the caliper back up inside there. We're going to get the rotor, and we'll wrap this job back up. Okay, just want to show you real quick. Even though you get the part store to give you the right rotors, you hope are the right ones, you always want to match them up just to make sure that they're the exact same. I've had it happen before where the rotors don't line up exactly right, and you put them on, you're going to have a problem. So you got to make sure you lay them down like this here. Check to make sure they're the exact same height. Take the rotor and lay the other rotor over the top of the old rotor, just to make sure that it's the same size here. Make sure all your bolt holes line up, and that's it. It appears to be correct. All right, so let's throw this back on the car, and we'll continue. Seems very simple, but I mean, it had it happen before where somebody gave you the wrong rotor. All right, then we just take the rotor, put it on like this, and it slides right on. Now that previous rotor, it has a little plug that goes right in there to adjust the parking brakes. We're going to take it out of the old rotor, and we're going to put it back into the new one. You just push it out with a screwdriver, and you just push it right back in the other with a screwdriver again. All right, that's it. It keeps any kind of water or anything from going inside there. It reduces the water going inside. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this back onto the car. Now, if you have the brake pads in and they're probably going to fall out, well, you can just take them out for now and put it here. And then we're going to mount the bracket back on the car. Now remember, you have to have that bolt back in there already because you won't be able to get in there later on. So you have your caliper onto that lower pin. And then we're going to catch the bolts that hold the bracket in place. And we're going to screw them in by hand as far as you can by hand. And once you've got the top report, then we're just going to go and we're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom one. And you may have to just slide it around a little bit. You may have to slide the bracket just a little bit to get the bolt to catch and screw in. Make sure it's only done by hand. No ratchet, no wrench, no nothing. Do it by hand first so you don't cross-thread it by accident. Screw them in as far as you possibly can. And then you can get in there with your wrench and your ratchet and tighten everything up as tight as you can. And now remember the bottom one, we couldn't get in by the bottom one with a ratchet, so we're just going to tighten that up with a wrench as tight as we can. Nice and tight. Now, remember the inner brake pad is in place where it belongs. Just put your outer brake pad back in where it took it out, and it just slides right in and pushes in nice and easy. And then just rotate your caliper up all the way. Now remember, we pushed that piston all the way back in before with the screwdriver. But if that piston is sticking out a little bit too far, then you need to get a tool. I'll grab the tool, I'll show you what it looks like. This is the tool that you would actually, there's lots of different kinds, but this is basically how it works. You would take the old brake pads that you had, you put this tool in here, or whatever tool you have, and you turn this, and you push the piston back into the bore as far as it can go. But in this case, we did it with the screwdriver and pushed it all the way back in, so you eliminated this step by pushing that in with a screwdriver. All right, then you rotate your caliper back up, and you grab your slide pin that we previously lubricated, and you put it in, and you tighten it down as tight as you can by hand first. And then once you have it as tight as you can by hand, then you come in here with your ratchet, which is a 14mm again, and you tighten it up. Now you remember that bottom bolt right there, we couldn't take that out all the way, but we did loosen it. So we're just going to tighten that up now. And that's tight. All right? Let me just recap exactly what we did again, so you know. Okay. We made sure our 14mm bolt on top and bottom of the caliper are tight. We made sure our 19mm that holds the mounting bracket to the car itself is on tight, the top and the bottom. We put that piece back inside here, that rubber piece, to keep the water from going in by the parking brakes. And the last thing we did is we lubricated all of the slide pins where the brake pads go, and they slide back and forth on. And that's it. We're pretty much all set. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go around to the opposite side of the car, and we're going to duplicate what we did here on the other side. And that's it. We'll be all set. The last thing you want to do after you do the brakes, before you drive it, get in, pump the brake pedal, and what that brake pump and the brake pedal does is it pushes this piston back out so it touches into the brakes and it gives you a nice firm pedal. And that's it. All right.